Hi, I'm Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish, and I'm the author of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. In this video, I'm going to quickly summarize the 8 steps for role-playing game preparation outlined in Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. This video will give a brief overview of each of the 8 steps. In future videos, I'll go over each step individually and also go over the rest of the book so you can see how it can help you run your own games. So over on the left, you will see the book itself, and over down on the right, you will see all of the chapters that exist in this book. What I'm going to talk about today are the 8 steps, which are described in depth in chapters 3 through 10. But we're also going to talk about chapter 2, which is available for free. Chapter 2 includes a list and brief description of each of these 8 steps. You can download it for free, either by downloading it by clicking the link below, or going to slyflourish.com, clicking on Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, and you will see a free preview there. It has all of the everything that I'm going to show in chapter 2 is in that preview, and it has all of the 8 steps listed out. So chapter 1 of this book talks about why we have this book in general, who is it for, and what we want to do. How do we read this book? This is not the kind of book where I expect you're going to read it from cover to cover. Some people do, and that's great, but it's also very easy to summarize. And it also recognizes that this is not the way, right? There is not only one way to do your game prep. There are many ways, but I do offer some specific guidance on how you might do it. You can take what works, omit what doesn't, and build the process that works best for you to run great games. So the first section of the book is on preparing your game. This is the heart of the 8 steps. This is where the 8 steps come in. And we talk about preparing what benefits your game being the most important critical piece. And then we come to the checklist itself. So as I mentioned about 12 times, there are 8 steps in this. And the first step is reviewing the characters. We want to make sure that we're putting the characters into our heads first and foremost before we do anything else in our game preparation. We want to make sure that they are rooted deep within us before we think about the whole rest of the world. And we do this by naming them. Who are they? What do they want? What kind of, do they want anything specifically? Do they have the kind of magic items they should have, or are there magic items we might drop in with them? How do they matter in the world? Reviewing the characters is really a critical component, and that's why we do it first, because the characters are the most important actors in your game. They are probably the heart of the game, and we want to make sure that we focus on that heart. The second step is the strong start. Where does our game begin? What tells everybody that we are now playing D&D? How can we grab their attention and drop them right into the action? Sometimes that's just a fight, right? They start off, there's a conflict, bang, they're in the middle of a fight. Roll for initiative, let's have a battle. Other times it's just an extreme event. A meteor crashes into the planet. A castle explodes. There's a scream in the streets. So in our next session, what event can occur right in the beginning of that adventure to grab their attention? Really important. And you can do it even if you're right in the middle of something. If you ended the game in the middle of a scene, what's the very first thing that occurs in that scene that grabs their attention and says we're playing D&D? The third step is outlining potential scenes. This is very much a feel-good step. Do you have a general idea about where the game is going to go? Sometimes it doesn't matter. You're prepared enough. You really don't know where it's going to go. You don't need the scenes. But many times it's like if you really don't have any idea and you're afraid that once you do that strong start, you don't know what step 2 and 3 and 4 is, it can be worth writing down the scenes you think might occur. It might just be 3 words per scene. You don't need a lot of detail. You don't need a lot of flavor text. You don't need big paragraphs. Just what are the kinds of things you think are going to happen? What is it? Is it 3 options that they might go down? Is it 3 scenes that are going to be sequential? Generally speaking, what are the scenes that are going to take place? Again, if you don't think you need it, that's a step that's easily removed. The fourth step is a big one. It is actually the reason I wrote this book was because I feel that this is such a powerful tool, and that's secrets and clues, defining secrets and clues. So for this step, we sit down and we think up what are the 10 things our characters might discover in the next game. These sorts of things could be critical plot points to the story itself. Who murdered the queen? Right? It could be something relatively minor. One of the characters' mentors is in town, or one of the characters' brothers has died. Right? It could be a piece of information like that that's really important. It could be a bit of history, right? 10,000 years ago, an empire was completely buried in an earthquake. A magocracy was buried in an earthquake, and they left all of their magic underneath, underneath the current city. So it could be a bit of history that the characters will discover. There are some criteria for secrets and clues. One is they are short. They're usually like one sentence long. Two is we don't define where the characters will find it. Maybe they hear it as a rumor. Maybe it's a dream they have. Maybe it's a vision they get when they put their hands on an obelisk. The point is, we have this little bit of history. It matters to the characters, right? Even if it's old history, it's still something that should be relevant to the characters. And we don't know how they're going to find it. So those are secrets and clues. I'm probably going to talk a lot about that in a future video. Next is developing fantastic locations. If you're running a published adventure, you may not have to do this. But if you are developing your own world, very likely you want to have interesting places for the characters to go and do things. So you can think of a fantastic location as the backdrop of a scene in a play. We don't know exactly how a scene is going to go, but we can get a general idea of where they are. Are they in a ruined watchtower where stones are still floating in the air rather than collapsing to the ground? Are they in a throne room with a draconic bone throne on the other side? What are the interesting what are the things that really make this area that they're in fantastic? Is there a giant clockwork, planetary system floating in the air? Usually what we do is you define it with a key term. You'd say throne room or draconic throne room, and then you define like 3 features that are interesting. Draconic throne, pool of blood, and armored statues along the walls, right? So we don't need more than that. We don't need to fill it out. We don't write paragraphs of text, but we need enough to tell us, here's an interesting locations that the characters will go or may go. Usually we build about one of these for every 45 minutes of gameplay. So if we're running like a 4-hour game, you probably want to have about 6-ish of these, 6, 7 of them on hand at any given time. That would be useful. You might not need them all. And these don't have to be real hard to develop. Just what are the 7 locations that you think the characters might go to in their game? Next, we outline important NPCs. We know important ones because you're very likely to come up. They have some major component in the game. There's some major, they have an important place in the world. What is their name? What is an interesting character archetype we might steal from another piece of fiction? And any other traits that we want to add. We have some specific ones. Again, we go with a very light style in here. Usually the name is the main thing. What is their name? And then a few details to kind of outline who that NPC is. Next, we choose relevant monsters. We worry less about challenge rating and making sure that we're building balanced encounters. The reality is there's no such thing as a balanced encounter. The encounters just don't balance that well. However, we do focus a lot on the ecology. What monsters make sense for this situation? If a bunch of hobgoblins have taken over a ruined castle, what other kinds of monsters do hobgoblins hang out with that might be in this castle? Did they hire some ogre mercenaries? Do they have, does the leader have a couple of pet hellhounds? What are the other monsters that might show up in this? We think more ecology than we do about stat blocks. When we're picking our relevant monsters. Real good tip here, read the monster manual cover to cover. Read all of the monsters in there. Read the lore of the monsters so that Banderhobs have a strong connection to hags, right? These sort of connections between monsters can be really important. And our final step is selecting magic item rewards. What are the items that really matter to the characters? So magic items are important because they matter very much to character growth. They are a clear, valuable item for character growth. Yet DMs are in control of them almost completely. So if we're not thinking about magic items, we're not serving the characters well by helping them grow in the one way we can let them grow. So there are a few ways to do this. You can, of course, roll randomly for magic items. You can also ask for a loose wish list, what kind of items they want. And you can also sort of place magic items in your game at the right moment to make sure that everybody's getting one over time and that they're getting something that really matters for them as a character. So it is worth our time to think about what magic items the characters are getting and what items they might pick up in the future. So again, this is a very loose outline. We don't stick to this every time. You can remove the ones that are not relevant for the game that you're running. You can add a couple extras if you have some that are really important to you. But the 8 steps are designed to just be a nice, simple framework, something you can do in about a half hour to prepare for a game. So in future videos, I'm going to go over each of the 8 steps, and I'm also going to have a video where I go over the other chapters in this book so you can see what's in the book and how it might help you with your game. So thank you very much.